All right, I'm currently on the phone with Irian Darkwood. She's another musician that reached out about the current interview session. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the chance to introduce herself.
Hi, guys. My name's Irian Darkwood, and and I am pretty new to the scene. I'm pretty new to all this, but yeah, I'm not really sure what everyone wants to know about me. Really, it's I do some rock metal music. Um, I was pretty well known around the karaoke scene first, and then I got picked up here by Dark Nomad, and we're doing lots of new songs, and it's really exciting, actually.
Awesome. That's very cool. Well, we will definitely talk about that. But I always like to start in the beginning. So tell me about when you kind of first connected with music. What made you decide that it was something that, connected with your personality?
Oh, I think I've always been this way, actually, ever since I was really quite small, and I loved my music classes in school. I used to sing for people at home, much to their annoyance, and you know, I just kind of grew up around that. And my dad was into music. My mom liked music. My dad had a little band, as I recall, if I remember correctly, and he, we there was a lot of encouragement around music, and I seem to have been the only one of my sisters that could actually carry a note. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be me. But yeah, yeah. I just took to that. It was a lot of choir stuff, during school time. But when I hit my adulthood, I got introduced to karaoke, and it seemed like it was all over from there. I loved the adrenaline rush from getting up in front of people. I loved the watching people dance and sing, and just kind of and they compliment me on it, and they and I loved that kind of stuff. I loved the crowds. I loved the feel. I loved the live music feel, and so yeah, that's I did a lot of that karaoke, and I was actually became quite well known that way. And yeah, it was interesting. I got a group online, Musicians United, and there's my current company that I work for. They were offering auditions for their band Pressure, and I auditioned. Well, I went to audition, and then I chickened out because I thought they were too good for my level, but he stayed in contact with me, and it turned out he was the management of this company, and he offered me a contract, and here we are.
Awesome. So you're talking about Simon from Pressure. I've spoken to him a couple times, as well as interviewed Pressure a few years back. And so he kind of stepped in and sent you my way, is what I know about the back end of that. But going back to kind of the choir years there, you mentioned that you kind of got into singing and public performance through doing choir. Was that like through church, or was it like public school that you were doing that?
I was doing it through school, and I was doing it through church as well. You know, I I tried out for some, for the honor choir and stuff like that, which is not. It's kind of the higher levels and stuff that they perform in, like the tattoo and stuff, and so I was really interested in that kind of thing, and yeah, I was. I don't know. I don't think I was so good of a choir singer, but I really tried.
Sure. So tell me about kind of the artistry that you kind of tapped into there. Because you mentioned at some point you transitioned to doing karaoke, and there is a performance art to karaoke. So tell me about kind of how you developed that.
Um, so yeah, when I first started with karaoke, and this is really weird, strange, because I would sit actually, and I wouldn't face anybody. I would look at the monitor and sit sideways, and not look at anybody, because I was terrified of people at first, terrified. And then I one of my host friends, she actually brought a vocal coach friend of hers over to actually watch me, and this woman walked up to me and she said, "Start looking at the crowd, and you'll realize that not a whole lot of people are actually looking at you." and uh, and people tend to take to you better that way, and I did, and And at first I was terrified and I was scared, but I looked around and I was like, yeah, okay, people are just kind of doing their own thing, and some people, were looking, but that was okay. And then I realized that people were enjoying themselves, and that gave me kind of that energy to want to keep going and do things, and so I started to kind of come out of my shell that way.
Perfect. So, once the karaoke kind of environment was more comfortable for you, did you ever consider looking for bands to sing for before Simon contacted you, or how did that go about? Like, what were kind of the tangent steps to doing karaoke, and then also trying to explore being a vocalist?
Well, actually, so I developed a lot of friendships in the music industry, and I was promoting a lot of people and for free, and I should have been paid personally, but it's all good. But I loved doing that. I love being out in the scene. I love making those connections, and a lot of them, they knew that I sang karaoke, and they were trying to get me more out there. Beyond the karaoke stage, and so I did try out for a couple of bands. It wasn't my time at the time to do it, I guess, and so I just kind of stuck with the karaoke, and I'd actually record sometimes and post it to Facebook, and let everybody kind of see me do karaoke. So that's kind of how I got started there.
Sure, that's great. So tell me those next steps. So now let's go into, you met a bunch of people in the music industry. They kind of helped guide kind of your experience in there. And as you mentioned, you helped promote a bunch of people as well. Where did that bring you to where you are now?
Well, I actually became pretty well known locally around here because I promoted everybody. And it was, well, actually not, I guess not everybody. I was more into the country scene at the time because I actually started out country singing. And so I knew a lot of people in that world. And I got invited to the Canadian Country Music Awards when they were here in Halifax, and I made so many connections there. And then it kind of became a national thing. I knew people everywhere nationally, and then that kind of branches out, as the network does, and kind of like the ripple effect. And so then everybody started talking, and then I would get up once in a while and I'd sing with some friends of mine, and yeah, it was. I don't really know. This kind of just continued to grow out, and my name got more well known, and then I started administrating this group of musicians online on Facebook, and we have over 49,000 musicians members in that group, and that's where Simon, where Njord put his ad up, and I just happened to be there that day to see it. So
Okay, and that was a post looking for a vocalist for, at that point, would have been Pressure.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that process, starting to work with them, learning their performances, and then, transitioning to what you're up to now.
I messaged him and I said I was interested in auditioning, and he gave me a couple of links to their music, and I listened to their music, and I lost my confidence because they were really good, and I was like, oh, this is way above my pay grade. This is not something I can. I don't think I'm good enough for this, and I kind of wimped out, and but Njord decided he was going to keep contact with me, and which was good because we became friends, and then he watched my stupid little karaoke videos, and he said, I think we can do something here, and I said okay, and he said, well, so I'm going to offer you a contract, and I was like, what, are you talking to me? you know and and he said, well, yeah, he said, I think that you're really good, because at the time I had transitioned over from country music and with the karaoke, and I had gone into things like Def Leppard and Skid Row and White Snake, the 80s and 90s, hardcore kind of bands, and he said, yeah, no, there's definitely something here, and I think we can nurture that, and we can make something out of it, and I was like, oh, this is somebody who believes in me. That's pretty awesome, you know. And so I said, okay, you know, and we discussed the contract, and I signed the contract, and we started working on some various songs, and you know, Lost Heart came about, you know, the last few months. I sat down and I started writing and about that, and that came out of it, and that's my first song that's being released right now.
Awesome. So, with that release coming out, what kind of are your hopes for the like progress of that? Where do you want to see this project go? Are you gonna keep writing and then eventually start doing shows, or what's the itinerary like?
Oh, I definitely plan to keep writing. I do plan to get out to do some live shows eventually. We're kind of reaching out to see where there's places, you know, even over in Europe and here in Canada, if I can get anywhere to see if what's you know what's good so far. But we're you know we're working on all kinds of new songs, and some covers actually as well. But they're so with the covers, they're different takes, more like metal type takes on or rock type tapes on like old like beloved folk songs, that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting thing to do. And yeah, so we're just kind of sitting on a bunch of different songs right now, and we plan to kind of release them out as it goes on.
Nice, very cool. So you mentioned a lot of time that you spent working in the industry, promoting other artists, and then also making connections and stuff like that. What are some of the memories that stand out to you most prominently about all that time that you spent working in music?
Well, yeah, one of the most memorable moments is, you know, I mentioned the Canadian Country Music Awards when they were here in Halifax, and that was a very big deal. And there were a lot of really cool, really, you know, well-known artists here in Canada, and I got to meet almost everybody that way. And you know, these were some people that at the time I really looked up to, and I kind of, you know, idolized. I was a little starstruck actually, and sometimes there I'd be like, oh my gosh, is that Dean Brody? Oh my God. And I freak out, you know, and I just kind of freeze and stare and be awkward and weird, you know, and so I was just like anybody else. And but it was really fun because everybody is like family in the music industry. It's so you're, you know, accepted by every, you know, if you're friends with this person, you're friends with this person, you're friends with that person too, whether you know them or not. And you got introduced to it. It's really neat, that web. Once you get in it, it's kind of, yeah. And, you know, I promoted people because they were my friends, and I thought, you know, it was nice to do, and it showed support. And then eventually I was like kind of known as the promoter person. And, you know, I actually I was probably about an hour outside of the city from where I live here, and we were at a restaurant, and I recognized these musicians, and they were fairly well known locally. And I walked up to them. I said, "Are you Wichita?" And they said, "Yeah." And they looked at me, and she says, "Are you Carol?" And I was like, "You guys know me?" You know. So it gets out there, you know. And so I was already pretty well known, you know, my face, and I had people coming up to me, and they're like, you know, I got stopped at a Tim Hortons, a coffee shop here, and he turned around and he said, "Are you Carol?" And I looked around. I was like, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Can I shake your hand?" And I said, "Okay." And he's like, I knew that voice. You promote people. You're cool." And I was like, "Cool. I like this." You know, it's yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah, definitely. You know, that's great to make those connections and everything. And you're absolutely right. You know, the closer that we all are, the more we can build those friendships and everything. And that's kind of what I kind of leverage too. I want people to be closer in the music industry and, you know, have a more like cooperative philosophy towards it.
I agree with that. I don't agree with this. Everyone's in competition with each other, and that you have to kind of hate your fellow artists. That's not how that works for me.
Right. All right. So, with those singles coming out and working on new music, where can people find you?
So I'm available on multiple places right now. But right now what I can remember off the top of my head is I'm available on Instagram under Irian Darkwood, and I'm available on Facebook also under Irian Darkwood. Uh, so I'm going to give you the links, of course, but yeah. So those are the two main places where you'll find me right now, actually, and yeah, I think there's yeah, I have a pre-save or yeah, pre-save and a preview of Lost Heart on Destroyed Kid as well. I think it is. So but yeah, so I'll be sending over all those links for you to look
Awesome.
at.
I will definitely make sure that they get tagged and everything as well. All right. So I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So what's a message that you have that you want to share with other people?
Well, I guess when so I'm 43 years old, so I thought that I was too old to start this kind of thing, and you know, thankfully I have a lot of encouragement and I have a great team, and you know, I have these moments where I still feel like I might be too old to compete with everybody, but or to be in with everybody, but you know, it's never too late to start. You know, there are people that have just started their music careers and they're like 60 years old, and they're doing really well. So you know, it's never too late, and to not, you know, the other thing I have to, you know, and this is kind of a message for myself as well, is to not give up, to just keep kind of persisting, and yeah, it's it's you never know when that when that door will open. You know, just keep pushing.